Welcome to The Wedding Biz with Andy Kushner, the show about the global wedding business and your backstage pass to the happily ever after world of professional dream makers.
I gave you my heart on a silver platter, 'cause you made my dreams come true. It won't crack, baby.
Hey everyone, it's Andy Kushner, host of The Wedding Biz. If you're a first-time listener, welcome to the show and to our community. And if you are a regular listener coming back, thank you so much for supporting us. We really appreciate it. Also, we are going to start something new. We're going to start setting up meetups for whenever I travel to conduct interviews. And matter of fact, I'll be coming to LA very soon, next week, about a week and a half. And so if you can all follow us on Instagram at Wedding Biz Show, you will get lots of fun information, including whenever we have these meetups to announce. Today's guest is the wonderful photographer, Jose Villa. I met him at the Engaged Luxury Wedding Summit in Cancun at the Nizuc Resort and had a wonderful, wonderful conversation. Whether you are a photographer or not, there is so much in this conversation to learn from and to be inspired from. Jose's passion inspires him to go over and above for his clients. He even provides personal images from his side trips when he does destination weddings to his clients and prospective clients so that they can really get a full story of who he is as well as for the weddings. You can also have a chance to learn the difference between film and digital from Jose's perspective. He only shoots in film, which I thought took incredible courage because when digital came out, it was the new thing, and most photographers went in that direction. And of course, shooting film, you've got to be fully manual. And since you're not editing on a computer, every shot really counts. Also, have a chance to learn what one of Jose's favorite images is to capture at a typical wedding. You can also hear about what the positive impact was when he gave his cell phone away for the first time, which is very interesting. And overall, what provides inspiration for Jose. And for you photographers out there, you'll also get to find out what equipment Jose uses. This is, again, such an elucidating conversation. Enjoy my conversation with Jose Villa. So, Jose, we are here at the Engaged Luxury Wedding Business Summit, hosted by Rebecca and Catherine at the Nizuc Resort in Cancun. And you are a fine art wedding photographer. You've been published in many magazines around the world. You've been named one of the top wedding photographers by Martha Stewart Weddings, Harper's Bazaar, Style Me Pretty, and Vogue. You've been named in the top 10 photographers in the world by American Photo Magazine, and PDN named you one of the most influential photographers of our decade. I understand you also run workshops, and you've authored the book Fine Art Wedding Photography. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Solvang, California. I was born in Mexico. So at age 5, went to Southern California, kind of Central California. So right by Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
And I grew up on a ranch. The ranch is called Flag Is Up Farms. It's owned by Monty and Pat Roberts. Monty is an incredible horse trainer. And he actually wrote the book, The Man That Listens to Horses, and an unbelievable upbringing. So this ranch is just like incredible. One of my, I think, the biggest inspirations in how I photograph and how I see the world. Yeah. Big ranch with gorgeous, lined trees and horses running everywhere and animals all over the place.
Yeah, I think I'm familiar. I think it's Solvang where Mindy Rice is.
Yeah.
Is it Mindy?
Yeah, Mindy Rice. She lives in Ballard, which is just like 3 miles or so away.
Okay. Because I was just there. I was doing a lot of interviews in LA a few weeks ago, and I went to see Mindy. I interviewed her. Yeah, her episode is going to come out early January.
Oh, she's awesome.
Oh, yeah, that was really fun. But so I have a bit of a feel for where you grew up, because this is like kind of out in the middle of nowhere.
Exactly. Yeah, really big wine country too. They call it like the second, wine country of California, or the top 2 or something.
So Jose, then when you were really little, did you already have a passion for photography? Like, how did this start to come about?
No, I kind of have the cheesy, fell in love with it in high school kind of story. I didn't.
Did you own your own enlarger or something like that?
Well, I did. I ended up buying one at a garage sale.
Yeah, I had a Bogan T35. Oh, black and white. Well, this is way back. It's dating me in the 70s.
But I fell in love with it in high school, and it's funny because my parents you migrate to, you go to America to be a doctor or an attorney and all these things.
Yeah.
And when I told my parents I wanted to be a photographer, they were like, no, you can't be a photographer. You're crazy. We didn't bring you to America to be a photographer. We're going to support you for the rest of your life. And then the funny thing is now fast forward.
But can I stop just for a moment?
Yeah.
Where were they from?
Mexico.
Okay, Mexico. I mean, I figured, but I still wanted to ask.
Yeah.
So culturally, there's certain expectations?
Yeah. I mean, you go to America and you take on amazing education and you become a doctor.
Quote, a safe job.
Totally. Yeah. Exactly. Like a, 40-hour a week thing or even more, hard workers. And that's what my parents were doing. But they just thought, well, no one in our family is artistic. No one really does.
So they just didn't understand.
They didn't understand. They were kind of, they were scared because I was really serious about it.
Yeah.
And I ended up going to Brooks. But then fast forward, gosh, I'd say maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 years into my business after I graduated from Brooks Institute of Photography in Santa Barbara. And I remember, and I still lived with my parents, I remember bringing home a $5,000 check. And that was the biggest dollar amount I had ever received for a job. And, they had known that I'd get paid certain things and here and there. But I was like, okay, I'm going to raise my rates, but I'm not going to tell my parents. And, I shared a lot with them.
Yeah.
I lived with them at the time. And so then I came home with a $5,000 check and I said, oh my gosh, you guys won't believe it. I have a $5,000 check from a wedding I just booked.
Yeah.
And my dad says, see, I told you to be a wedding photographer.
That's great.
Oh my gosh. And I always remind him of that. He's like, I didn't say that. I've always wanted you to be a photographer.
Well, but still, I'm curious, when did the passion hit you and how did it hit you about photography? Like, why photography?
Yeah. Well, I took a photography class in high school to sort of escape my, AP classes and all these really intense classes.
Yeah.
And so I took photography just thinking, okay, I know that the instructor or the teacher is sort of a mellow dude. Like he allows his students to go off, property off the school and, he'll allow them to go to out to Taco Bell, which was like a big thing for us. And I thought I'm going to take that class to just slack off. Well, I ended up really falling in love with it.
Wow.
Yeah. And he had a dark room there. When I told him I wanted to be a photographer, he said, wouldn't it be really cool if you became a really well-known Mexican photographer? And at the time I was 17 or 18 years old. I didn't even really pay attention to that, know? But anyway, so then I asked him, I said, hey, my parents, they're not really big on me going to photography school. Can you take me to Brooks Institute? Can you sort of, in place of my parents because they don't agree with it? And he totally agreed. He gave me cameras. He allowed me to use the darkroom at the school. He gave me the key to the room, to the classroom.
Oh my gosh.
And so because he allowed me to do all this, it really, I just felt safe. I felt like, gosh, I have everything that I need. And how lucky am I to have that? And so I think I just naturally just ended up being so passionate about it because it was like an open door to whatever I wanted in photography.
But still, I'm noticing in your story, though, that you told him, you wanted his help to go there. Mm-hmm. What was it about photography that grabbed you like that?
I guess I felt like I could take a good photo. And, I didn't know anything about photography, but I was sitting in a classroom with 20 students. And at this time, at the time, a lot of them were, you're in high school, they slack off, but there was at least 3 or 4 of us that were really into it. And I would sort of see what they would do and then I would do. And then I just felt like I saw things differently than they did. And people were reacting. And then then there were students that were hiring me, which was really weird, as a 17-year-old saying, hey, can I hire you to do my high school senior portrait? And I thought, this is interesting. So they're liking the photos I'm taking of my friends or my family. And then when I show them in school or in the classroom, they're loving that. So then they ended up hiring, I would charge $50 or $70 or something. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. And so, I was working at Rite Aid Pharmacy. I worked there for 5 years. That's basically what got me through college. And I was making at the time, I don't know, $10.50 an hour. And I thought if I could take a portrait for 25 minutes and make $70 or $50, wow, this is insane. And I loved it, and I felt like I was good at it and people were really complimenting me. And I thought, okay, I think I'm onto something here.
Yeah. So then when you go, tell me the name of the school again,
Brooks Institute of Photography in Santa Barbara.
How long were you there?
It's a 3-year program. So I got my bachelor's there.
Pretty immersive. Oh, I see. But still based on photography.
All photography. In the end, it was, unfortunately, they are no longer in business, I guess, if you will. They closed their doors, but they were around for, 40 something years. But it ended up being like a video and audio, in the end, but mostly photography.
So you were also surrounded by like-minded people too.
Oh yeah. And that's what I loved, because then, in this high school environment, I don't know, 80% of the kids weren't into it.
Yeah.
And then when I went to photography school, everyone was into it.
Yeah.
And it was like a playground. It was amazing.
Yeah. You were mentioning this guy who helped you, who obviously, like you said, gave you the keys. And
Mr. Brooks. Yeah.
Mr. Brooks. Yeah. Having a mentor,
Yeah.
I'm finding that is something that it seems a lot of us in the industry,
Exactly.
yeah, really made a difference, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And having that, I mentioned too, the nurturing side of it too. And it sounds like you had that total environment in school and surrounded by these people and the teachers, the whole environment was so nurturing and supportive of this passion of yours. So what happened next then? You said when you got that first check, $5,000, something like that. How did that come about? How did you get your first wedding?
Well, the funny thing is actually, so I started doing these senior portraits, and through that came, children photography and family portraits and all of that good stuff. But I've always I've always known I liked weddings. I always thought that like weddings were such an amazing, celebration where you can capture so many different, people at, younger, older. I love fashion, and fashion is really big, especially today with like brides wearing these crazy, incredible, gowns. And I had a client who was a repeat client. And, this was early on, but she would hire me every 3 or 4 months to photograph her kids. And one day she said, do you do weddings? And I thought, I don't think I'm ready for weddings. And she said, well, you could do this. You could run around chasing kids. Why can't you do weddings?
Yeah.
And I thought, you have a point. So then I said, fine, I'll photograph the wedding. Whose wedding is it? She said, it's my sister's wedding, and I want to pay for it. That's my gift to her. Oh. And I thought, okay, sure, I'll do it, but I can't do it if they talk to me. Like, I don't want anybody talking to me.
What do you mean? What were you concerned about?
Well, I just was really nervous. I'm a nervous person anyway, just naturally.
Yeah.
And I was always just sort of attracted to like photographing, moments, just sort of being a fly on the wall, or, just a lot of times too, photographing kids was fun because I just like ran after them and let them be kids.
Right.
And at weddings, I knew that I had to pose people. I had to be kind of the center of attention in certain moments, like everyone look at me, and I didn't want everybody's eyes on me. And so that really kind of made me nervous. So then I said to her, let me just kind of like not talk, like don't like no one talk to me.
Yeah.
And I'll just shoot. And she said, okay, that's interesting. But what about the family portraits? And I thought, well, that's a good question. I don't know. We'll figure that out. And in the end, I forced myself to do it. And I haven't looked back. Really, it's been probably now maybe 16 years since I photographed the first wedding.
Wow. Well, in kind of learning about you, I found a quote, I want to ask more about. You said, quote unquote, ultimately, my goal is to craft vibrant, energetic, fine art images that are as unique as the people in the photographs. Can you define fine art photography?
That's a really good question. So fine art photography is using a medium. So I shoot 100% film. So that's part of it. The other part of it is that now, because I've sort of mastered doing this for such a long time, I direct a lot. So I am and when it's appropriate, obviously during the ceremony, I'm not directing, and framing, composition really plays into all of that. The final presentation as well, even just like doing it old school. So, printing images in the darkroom, for example, people don't do that much anymore. But when you do things like that, it becomes art. It becomes a one of a kind of a photo or a piece.
Yeah.
And so I have followed that from the very beginning. I really have believed in film. When digital became a really big thing about maybe, I don't even know, 12 years or so ago, all of these photographer friends of mine that were shooting film, we were all shooting film, they transitioned into digital because that was the new thing. But I didn't want to go that route. I felt like I'm going to keep with what I'm doing because I feel like I'm going to lose my craft. I'm going to lose this fine art piece, this original piece with digital. It was just going to be sort of diminished.
Okay, can I just stop right there? So, I can make assumptions about the difference between film and digital, but can you help explain what that is? Why film? Why stay with film?
Yeah, well, I get this question a lot, and in some cases, my clients don't care. My clients are like, I don't care.
Just give me the product, right?
Yeah,
do it beautiful. That's what I want.
What I see is and they tell me this, there's something about what you do in your images that I love. And so I think a lot of these words come from my clients or potential clients where they say it's organic, it's nostalgic, it's classic, it's timeless. And so and I think to me that not that there aren't digital photographers that shoot in that way or that produce a product like that. There's some great photographers that are digital that do that, but I can still, for the most part, identify what and who is a film photographer and who is a digital.
Interesting. I mean, isn't there like a warmth to film in a sense?
There is definitely a warmth. Absolutely. There's also a sort of sense of focus, of the focus on some of these film cameras, at least some of the medium format cameras, which is what I'm photographing with, has a softness to it. And what happens with digital is digital tends to over sharpen. It has a sort of sharpen, kind of feel to it, which people love. And that's great. And I love it too for a lot of stuff. But so that's what people say. It has this sort of softness to it. And it's not so, I guess it's not so in your face. Like when you look at it immediately, I can tell right away.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, we both know some great photographers who use digital, but in my layman opinion, when I'm looking at film versus digital, again, you can be artful with digital. I'm not knocking that.
Of course.
But there's something, again, it reminds me, because I'm in the music business, there's this whole thing now about LPs, right? Versus, CDs are dying, MP3 files, whatever. With turntables and also recording analog versus digital. There are some artists that will still do that. It's really old technology, like 2-inch wide tape. But there is a warmth. I know it's a ethereal word when it comes to this, but I don't know. It's almost, I would think with film, there's just an artfulness to it.
Yeah, no, there is. And I think sometimes too, I feel like it has more of a custom sort of feel to it. It's like, I have to, and everything's manual, by the way. So like I'm manually focusing, I'm manually,
every shot, right?
Pretty much every shot, every scenario is so different. And at a wedding, you're involved in 8 different lighting situations.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be tungsten, it could be bright light, it could be dark, it could be rainy. I mean, it is just window light, shade, whatever, bouncing light everywhere. And you have to sort of, I love the one thing that I do love, technically speaking, a little bit about film is that it has a really beautiful consistency to it as well. And that's my ultimate goal when I deliver my product to my client is I want them to see that in these 8 lighting situations that the skin tone, which is really big for me, is all very consistent. And film helps to provide that a little bit more sometimes than digital. And if it doesn't, or it goes a little bit yellow or green or whatnot, the lab is doing that. I don't have to do that. I don't have to be behind my computer editing or color correcting any of that. I just don't, I don't want to be sitting behind a computer. I want to be photographing. Like that's what I do best. But there are, again, and I don't want to knock on digital. There's incredible digital photographers and some that actually enjoy color correcting and editing.
Yeah. I mean, there's an art to that too.
Exactly.
But I remember back again, long time ago and, just as a hobbyist, but I remember being in the dark room and I remember that feeling I got as, I can't remember the name of the solution that is where the
developer.
image. Yeah. Oops, right. The fixture developer. No, the fixture's after the developer,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I was like 13. But anyway, I remember the image starting to appear.
Yeah.
And just that feeling. There was something to it. It was so exciting to me.
Yeah, no. And so now we don't necessarily do that work ourselves. We have the lab do it. But when it comes back to us or when it, we send the rolls off to the lab in LA, Richard Photo Lab, and then it comes back and it's like they come in this beautiful box and everything's printed. And so we go crazy every time. It's like Christmas. You rip open the box and you're like, what did we get? What did we get? And so it's good, but it's also nerve wracking because, as a film photographer.
Yeah, right. What if you didn't get the shot the way you thought?
Exactly. Or what if we accidentally underexposed or underexposed or overexposed? Or what if the camera was acting up and we've had situations like this. So, we're shooting for 16 years, things happen.
Yeah.
Of course, it's just, something's bound to happen. And even it could just even be at Richard Photo Lab where someone accidentally develops it longer than normal or whatever it may be. But there is a little bit of a nervous, thing every time I get the photos back because I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope they came out as I saw them.
Yeah. Well, also I imagine not like I know with digital photographers, they're shooting thousands of photos, right? So you're really carefully choosing your moments.
Yeah, and I think that's part of also having sort of that title of, the fine art. And there's a lot of photographers that call themselves fine art wedding photographers. But I think that also comes with it is just sort of thinking more about the images versus just what they call, digital photographers call, pray and spray and pray. Oh. You just spray click, 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 and then you pray that something comes out. We can't do that as film photographers because every photo literally is about $1.50 that we take every click. So we have to think about not to say that digital photographers don't think. I'm just saying, as far as like framing and things, but we just financially have to think a little bit more about that because it doesn't really make sense if your lab bill is, $4,000, which it can be.
Wow.
And then you're charging a certain amount, maybe $8,000. I mean, really, what's your profit, after you do albums and prints and all the time and paying your assistants and all this stuff, So you have to really think as a business person to not really overdo it.
What about capturing emotion in this way? Can you talk about that? How that goes for you?
Yeah. I mean, I've learned so much from, again, doing this for such a while that I almost sort of anticipate moments now. Like I know that there's certain things that are going to happen. So like I have, a certain camera, a certain lens ready to go because of course those moments happen so quick. And those are my favorite moments. I mean, the favorite images, I should say. They're these moments that can never be recreated again. And so, for example, like I the bride and groom have just kissed at the ceremony. They're walking down the aisle.
Yeah.
I know that when they get past that pew, if it's in a church or the aisle or whatever, that they're going to look at each other. They're either going to be crying or they're going to look at each other or kiss. And so it's almost literally 100% of the time. And so I have to be at the right time, right place, right time, with the right equipment because I know I'm going to get that moment that they're going to share for the first time as a married couple that can never be recreated again.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful and it's one of my favorite images because there's the guests in the back and everyone's clapping and there, you see your friends and family in the background. It's like almost like a group photo in a way, but everyone is just sort of, it's a candid moment. But, yes, those are my favorite images of the day, but they happen so quick. So I think that it is really, photojournalists or wedding photojournalists have a hard job because they have to just know, where to be.
Yeah. Wow. It's like you're on every
for sure.
moment of a, to
exactly.
catch this.
Yeah. And then, we're shooting 12, 14, 16-hour days. So it's,
man,
I know it's pretty intense, but, at the end of the day, I'm like, drained, just like lay on the couch and you're like, I'm just done. But then the next day I'm like, let's go.
Yeah, right. What about, okay, so we just talked about maybe moments that you kind of expect that you're prepared for. What about the unexpected moments?
Yeah. As far as like the feeling or what do you mean by?
Yeah, well, during the wedding, especially during the reception,
right.
Where all of a sudden you see out of the corner of your eye, or maybe you're lucky and it's right in front of you that oh my God, I got to get this.
Yeah. No, it happens. Obviously it happens all the time. That's why I love, what I love about weddings is that, I think a lot of the unexpected moments do come usually like during the, ceremony, because you never know who's going to be crying and all these things. And even like during the reception, where, I've seen incredible things where, grandpa kisses so-and-so and that's a moment where maybe, and they haven't even like these people haven't talked in years or something, but you didn't know that. You just captured that moment and it means so much to them.
Whoa.
Or it was a moment where it's like, I don't know, grandma and grandpa were dancing on the dance floor for literally 2 seconds because they're, they're older and whatever. And then, something happens over the year and they pass away or things like that, and these are just moments that people are going to cherish forever. But again, you still have to be on and you have to just be ready if it's expected or not, really.
When I used to be at every single job, in the music business, the bands and everything, I would be moved. There are certain moments, especially with older people, talked about that for a moment, because like I would just realize that, my God, I mean, who knows really if they're how long are they going to be around? Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, when people are doing toasts to the bride, or rather like the blessing, that kind of a thing, I'll be told, we're going to bring up so-and-so, but the bride and groom I'll like want to bring the bride and groom up so that they can be in, because I'm thinking of the photographer and the videographer, and my team does that too. It's like, I know there can be a very poignant moment, especially in the future looking back.
Oh, absolutely.
I want to provide that.
Yeah. And I love when planners think of us, for those sorts of things, like wedding planners and people that, whoever it may be, it might be mom too, that says, let's do this or let's try this. And I like that because it sets us up for some really awesome photos. But you really do have to just be, and I think a lot of that, capturing those moments and being on and all of that comes, with experience. I've missed so many moments and it has killed me, and because it's literally right in front of me. And sometimes what I'll do, which I have to stop myself from doing is, I see a moment and then I put my camera down.
Yeah.
Because I want to enjoy the moment. Oh. And then I'm like, you kind of damn it. Okay.
That's funny.
So I it's hard because during the ceremony, a lot of times too, I'm wanting to just like,
you're getting
enjoy.
It sounds like you're really being moved. You are moved.
I'm so moved.
Yeah.
And, and I mean, I'm human too. I don't just, put this thing in front of in my face. And sometimes I just want to embrace that moment and just take it in. Yeah. But then I'm like, okay, shoot, you got to get the photo.
God, Jose, it's so interesting to me right now. For the first time, I'm really thinking in terms of you being a photographer, how you are in these emotional moments. I mean, it's your job, but also obviously it's who you are, which now I understand even more why you are so gifted at what you do. Is like you are in those emotional moments. And this is week after week after week after week.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think your personality, that's a really good point, but your personality is so big on the wedding day because those moments can be gone or you can change the moment as another human, another person in the scene. Yeah. Because if you're kind of uptight or you're, as a photographer, you rush people, and I've seen this, photographers yell at people, like get over here, or stand there or, that kind of thing. And I think they're excited or whatever, but I feel like I'm kind of a little bit of a chameleon. Like I'm very careful. And I think naturally this is just how I am, a little bit more quiet. But still when I need to be, on and talking and directive, I am. Yeah. But I feel like I know when is the right time for that. And it's really important that a photographer is that chameleon. And also even sometimes we're like psychologists, because we're in the getting ready room with the bride and it might just be me and just her and her mom, let's just say. Yeah. And, she's bawling or she's nervous or, whatever it may be. And I have to go and I have to kind of just say, can I get you anything? Everything's going to be great. Yeah. Enjoy the moment. Don't worry that there's a huge hurricane coming your way. Yeah. But, and of course I'm there to sort of, help that process because you see everything, in their faces. Yeah. And so I think your presence as a photographer is really important to getting, what is in front of you. And to let them
maintain that sense, that vulnerability, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And giving people space, I think don't be so aggressive, and allowing them to have that moment, I think is really important because I think a lot of photographers, we're on a schedule. Let's be honest, we have to, makeup artist is done or whatever it is. And we have to move on to the ceremony, but I allow myself to have that moment happen where I know photographers that are just like, okay, let's go. Come on. We're on to the next. Yeah. And I think that moment is gone because of that. Of course I have to be careful with timelines because I don't want to, piss off a wedding planner, let's say. But I'm very respectful of those timelines. But I do allow myself to just give some space to get those shots.
Yeah. I'm also thinking too, while you're talking about this, that you need to let yourself be vulnerable in order to better,
way to put it,
understand what's here to grab it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I'm curious about your process with clients and specifically weddings. Yeah. What can you tell me something about what your process is like from the beginning, meeting them and just how that goes for you? Yeah.
And it's really interesting because if you were to ask me this maybe 2 or 3 years ago, it would have been so different. But because of social media, the way that we do things has sort of shifted. I wouldn't say most, but a lot of our clients are now coming through Instagram, which is great. And so, they're contacting me and literally sometimes just wanting my rates and booking me through just the comments, through private messaging on Instagram. Yeah. I mean, who the heck knew that was going to be the new, and, again, I've been doing this for so long where I used to have a studio where people would sit down and come and see my work for the first time.
Yeah.
I didn't have a website, or if we did, it was dial up, and, that was a mess.
Right.
So people would see your portfolio when they came into your office, where now everything is just, as everywhere. And it's the beauty with Instagram is that, it's all image based. It's all, videos and all that good stuff. And so it's almost like I'm already kind of selling myself through that.
Yeah.
And now they know that, if they love my style, they know that they want my style. And then of course we talk about rates and all that, but beyond that, they just want to know that we're going to be a good fit and that personality wise, we're going to be good. So, most of my clients are all over the world. So we do FaceTime or Skype or things like that to get to know each other. And I think a lot of times, I'm really good about allowing my client to just, or allowing myself to listen to my client. And not talk about myself. I just really want to talk about them. And I'm just genuinely interested. And so the process is really that. And, you get an email and all that good stuff, or a phone call, and then you do a Skype session. And then we do engagement sessions as well. So once they book, we send a contract out, obviously. But then we do engagement sessions. We start immediately talking about that. Some clients can't come to the Santa Barbara area because they're all over the place. But of course, because I travel so much, I'll give them my schedule of where I will be throughout the next year. And they may hop on a plane if they're in New York and meet me in Italy.
Oh, that's great.
And so we'll do the engagement session there. And also I'll extend my, my trip if I'm doing a wedding in Italy. And then I'll, of course, photograph them or even another client that wants to meet me there. So once we do that, then of course we deliver the images, the engagement portraits in a beautiful little album. I want them to see themselves in color and in black and white. As a film photographer, you have to choose when you're shooting what you're going to be photographing, either color, black and white. And then through the process, I'm really involved with my clients. In the past, to be honest with you, I didn't really want to be so involved with my clients because, for example, like having them have my cell phone, just a simple thing like that, because I have a studio and I wanted them to call the studio and I wanted it to be like official, and I didn't want to become friends with my clients. Right. But I didn't want to become friends with my clients because I didn't want to have them feel like they could end up wanting to get discounts or, kind of like a friend family thing, And so I wanted to keep it very professional. I wanted them to just be the client and me be, the photographer. But what happened is, 2 years ago, I thought, I'm going to change that mentality. I'm going to give them, my cell phone. And the beauty behind that is actually people love that. They love that they feel like they're the only. And they end up spending a lot more money because of it, because they just feel like, he's giving me so much attention. And that's great. And I genuinely want to know through the process, like what they're wearing.
Yeah.
Where they're going on their honeymoon, all of this stuff. What's the decor going to be like? I want to see your engagement ring, all these things, just so that I get a sense of, what the wedding is going to look like already and what you're going to be wearing the day before, or the day of the wedding, I should say, so that I'm already prepared, with my inspiration or whatever it is. So anyway, so then we shoot the wedding, of course, and then, we give them, they get albums or they get prints, whatever they end up getting. And the beauty behind certain, clients is that I've had clients, that are legacy clients or clients that I've had for many years. They come back, for other celebrations, for family portraits, for, once they start having kids and all this stuff. They fly me around to photograph them wherever they are going on their vacations. So it's become such an amazing thing to watch. I have one client that I've had the longest, about 14 years, that hires me, a lot. And it's amazing. It's really pretty quite cool. Actually, I was listening to Brian Raffinelli and how
I was going to bring this up here. Engage. He talked his whole presentation was about creating legacy clients.
And so I really connected with
and he was on the show too. But anyway, keep going.
And love him. And so I was sitting there going, wow, that really hit home for me, as a photographer, because really that's the biggest goal, is to continue to really just sort of take care of your clients.
Earlier you were talking about engagements, like going to Italy, for example. What about the role of environment? I mean, I imagine, I know it's hard to fly a lot, although like you said, you give your schedule and maybe they'll come to you. But I'm just thinking to myself, okay, now I have the backdrop of some beautiful, if it's outside or even if it's inside because of the architecture, you've got that element too to work with, right?
Exactly. And I think as a photographer, for me, if I'm photographing at the same places, same hotels or same wedding locations, it can get redundant. It can get a little bit stale over a certain period of time. And so I think that's so beautiful to be able to, bring these clients or have them come to certain areas because it really just sort of provides inspiration for me and gives me a whole nother backdrop and lighting to play with.
Yeah. Wow. I also, I think it was in your website, I read about, or maybe an article about you had talked about trying an quote unquote unplugged wedding. And I believe you talked about, sending an enclosure with the invite, asking guests to power off at least during the ceremony. And you said it's awesome not to have to tell them to put down their phones and stop Instagramming.
Yeah.
See, and it's funny when I see ceremonies now, it's like some people have some discretion, but sometimes it's like I had, as a matter of fact, here on the show, I remember one of the planner designers was telling me a story about how like the mother, I think, of either the bride or the groom in the front row, like put up her camera and like he's thinking, shot, because of where the photographer was located. And
exactly.
Like, I mean, I don't know how you deal with all of that.
It's really hard. And you know what? The hardest part is I've had people bring their iPads.
Yes, I see that too. These huge iPads.
Yeah. And the newest iPad's like, 16 by 20.
Yeah, right.
Not really, but it's ginormous. I do like to mention and I know a lot of wedding planners do as well, which I love. Yeah. But I do love to mention to the bride and groom, it might be a good idea to, to have your officiant or your celebrant or whomever at the ceremony just quickly say, there's a great photographer here, everybody. Just put your iPhones away.
Yeah.
And in those moments when there are iPads or iPhones or whatever in the air during the ceremony, I mean, I just still have to shoot. I have to continue to just do what I do, and I can't allow that to distract me because there may be a beautiful moment happening and then there's a ugly, iPhone there. But in the end, we could potentially then retouch that later. And of course, to be honest with you, that's not our favorite thing to do. But we will do it. And that is the beauty of obviously working with digital files because, and really quickly just jumping back so that, guests maybe or people that are listening can understand is that when you are shooting film, you are still scanning the images digitally. So they are becoming a digital file.
Yes.
That, we live in a digital world. Sure. Everybody wants that. So we are still providing that digital image to the client. And then we can retouch anything. Yeah.
Well, and coming back to that whole point, people holding up iPads and phones, I even struggle with this myself at certain places. For me, particularly, when I'm traveling in a beautiful area and concerts, I tend to start to lift the phone. And then to me, I just am not as immersed in the experience if I'm looking through my phone.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, we want to capture the memories, but on the other hand, there's a cost to that.
Exactly. And I find myself doing that a lot too, obviously. But what I've tried practicing now is just putting the phone in the pocket and just enjoying it.
Yeah.
But then later I'm like, damn, I should have gotten that. I should have got that photo.
I know. But I love, especially at a concert where I can just let go. Oh my God. What a total difference. Complete difference.
I know.
In the moment.
I know. Exactly.
Also, I'm curious about, we talked earlier in the conversation about, some of the nervousness that you had earlier and things like that. I imagine there's still certain challenges you run into. And you're in the moment. It's so, the moment goes by. How do you deal with today, just any kind of anxiety or just how do you manage that in the moment? You must have some kind of a way of dealing with it.
Man, it is really hard. I will tell you. I think as I get older, I have more anxiety and I have a lot more, not bubbles, but butterflies. And I'm nervous. I feel like a lot more when I'm getting to the wedding. And then once I'm there and I kind of know, the bride's cool, groom's cool, everyone's great today, everyone's happy. Yeah. Then it really just takes over.
Right, and then you get in the zone.
I get in the zone. Yeah. And I just do my thing. And And then all of a sudden I look down and I'm like, oh my gosh, like we've been here for 8 hours.
Right.
That was
and
crazy.
It just flies.
Excuse me. Yeah. It just flies. And I'm like, wow, that was amazing. But it is definitely a thing that I deal with always.
But I do think that all the greats, again, it's one of the threads that I hear with a lot of people. And then my own experience, in the music side of it, is that if there's a job that seems particularly complicated or whatever's going on, something happens, throws you off in the beginning. I every single person, once we get in that zone,
right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's almost like, it's like muscle memory. It just takes over. And again, it's the people like yourself, like we're talking about, who let themselves be vulnerable and feel the emotion and become part of the experience.
Right. Exactly. That's a really good way to put it. Absolutely.
What about just only for a moment equipment for those, who
Sure.
are interested technically? What do you use?
So I mostly use a Contact 645, and it is a medium format. That is, I think I'm using that maybe literally 90% of the day. And then the rest is 35 millimeter. It's a Canon 1V, it's called. And I have 4 different lenses for that. And we use a video. So since, as far as lighting goes and stuff, and I think wedding planners are also wanting to know, I think a lot of times they ask me questions on lighting because it will definitely affect, what the reception may be like.
Right. Interesting.
I don't bring a lot of really big lighting. I'm a huge minimalist. Even in my life, the way that I live my life, it's super simple. But I do have a video light, and we do have a couple of flashes, really. And, of course, at every wedding.
Minimal, you're saying.
Yeah, super, super minimal. Of course, we have backups in the case that a camera does malfunction, which does happen. Some of these cameras are 20-something years old. I don't know, maybe the newest one I have is like 18 years old. But still, they stop working. But yeah, I try to keep it pretty simple.
Yeah. And what about, do you have any particular advice for a bride and groom on how to choose, because obviously there's a difference between really good photographers and a great photographer. And we talked about Instagram and the role of all of that. But like, what would you suggest to a bride and groom, to make these kinds of decisions? Yeah,
that's a really good question. I think brides and grooms should, number one, of course, meeting them and all this stuff. But I think they need to see a photographer's full wedding gallery. I think sometimes that can be a difficult question for a photographer to deliver on.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like seeing, it's seeing everything. And I think I would tell, and I tell brides and grooms this even before they've hired me. I tell them if you're going to go out and look at other photographers, you should definitely ask for a full gallery and see the consistency or the inconsistencies in how they're photographing throughout the day.
Yeah.
You want to see from the very getting ready to the very end. What is it like, the full gallery? I mean, in some cases, these photographers might be sharing 3,000 photos, which is really overwhelming. But for me, I usually do like maybe, the most is maybe 1,200 photos that might be in a gallery of a 10-hour wedding, let's say. But by sharing or by seeing a full gallery, it allows the client to really see everything, number one, but also even how much you're shooting and how much you're shooting of a specific thing throughout the day. Because if you're like photographing and showing this gallery that has tons of details, which is great, you have to be careful that the client doesn't think that's all you're good at, that you're good at also photographing people and moments and all of these things, So I think that is one of the biggest things I think a client or a potential client can ask a photographer is a full gallery.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And I'm also thinking about in your personal life, and the use of photography. Are you doing a lot, shooting a lot just in your personal life? I mean,
yeah. I pick up the camera a lot and I do a lot of these fun inspiration shoots. It gets pretty foggy certain times of the year at our home, and I love the fog. I think it's so beautiful. And so I'll get up in the morning, I'll take my Hasselblad or, a really old school camera, and I'll just drive around, and I'll drive around and photograph in the fog. And I have an online print gallery as well of my personal work. So wherever I travel, I also take another day or two and I'll get up early or whatever before the wedding, and I'll photograph landscapes. I'll photograph, I love horses. So I'm always looking for the next horse to photograph.
That's great.
And I have a pretty big collection of just these fine art prints that I've collected that are all personal work of, images from all over the world.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are from where I live because I'm so inspired by where I live. And I think as a photographer, if any photographers are listening to this, I think, where you live and where you surround yourself in is really important on, what you're putting out there and how you're seeing the world.
Keeping you inspired to all of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I constantly continue to shoot for myself. You really have to continue to shoot for yourself. It can't just be only picking up the camera when you're getting paid. And I think that's what makes one photographer different than the other, is if you're just dusting them off when you're ready to go, or, to a wedding or a job, or you're just doing it because you just love it.
Yeah. You're living, breathing, eating it.
Yeah. It's a passion that like now is it's just like overtaken. It's crazy. Yeah. But you just do it again because you just love it. And and you don't even think about it, when you pick up a camera and you're getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning because the fog's rolling in and the sun's coming out and all this stuff, and you don't think about how tired you are or whatever until you're maybe done and you're like, wow, that was amazing. I got some awesome shots. Okay, I'm tired. So it's a passion, and it just really has to come naturally. And
I imagine with all the travel that you're doing for jobs, my God, the opportunity you have to go take some personal time. Do you do much of that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I mean, we're so fortunate to go all over. One of my favorite places is Cuba, and we've shot a wedding in Cuba, and I fell in love with it then, and we went back, and I want to go back again. But it's pretty amazing now that you talk about that and bring that up. I wouldn't have seen all these incredible places if it wasn't for weddings.
Yeah.
And people say all the time, like, gosh, you're so lucky to be able to do all this. I mean, it took a lot of work.
Right.
I don't want to say 100% of it is luck, but definitely now I'm at a place where I'm so fortunate to be able to experience these incredible places I would never have gone.
Yeah.
Like an island in Langkawi, or in Malaysia, which is a tiny little place called Langkawi. I would have never even thought to go to this place. It's unbelievable. And I got a chance to really experience the island and see it. And I have some fine art prints from that location.
I can't even spell Langkawi. I have no idea.
I know. Exactly. Recently we went to the Maldives, and it is so far to get to. But wow, what an amazing place to go.
Yeah.
And we got a chance to hop around to different islands. I mean, there's thousands of islands, hundreds of islands out there.
Yeah.
But that was pretty incredible. And I was able to, take some time and just enjoy just taking pictures of just the stuff. And the beauty with that is that, the client brought me out there for a wedding, and I did personal work, and I give them the personal work.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you do?
I give it to them because, they brought me there.
Oh, interesting.
So it's theirs. It's not 100%, of course it's my copyright and whatever, and I can sell the images later. I don't need their permission to sell it, but I gift it to them as part of the package.
God, I love that, Jose. I mean, because obviously the environment that they've chosen means something to them, or they wouldn't have chosen. And then for them to have these like stunning, artful photos of that environment, that's a great idea.
Exactly. And, we use those images too for their wedding albums, to give it a nice sense of place. Like you said, you're dead on about, they pick this location because it means something to them. And it could be that they live in the US, but they're originally from Spain, and they love obviously going back, and they're getting married there. And so then I shoot a lot in their hometown, for example, and they get those images in the end, which is really, really quite special, I think.
Yeah, that's great. So what is the best way for people to find out more about you, to reach you? And we'll include this on in the show notes on the app and also in the website. So what's the best ways to reach you?
Well, there's my website is josevilla.com. Of course, everyone has Instagram, so at Jose Villa. And
I'm going to spell that, obviously, Jose, Jose, but Villa is Villa.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. Like a Tuscan villa. Everyone says my last name.
Jose Villa.
Jose. Yeah. Jose Villa. So Instagram is at Jose Villa. Twitter is at Jose Villa as well.
Okay.
But I would say website and Instagram right now is kind of Instagram's number one, really. Yeah.
Great. All right. Well, God, Jose, this has been I've really enjoyed talking to you. So thank you
thank you for having me. This is awesome. What a fun thing to be around these incredible people that you have on your website. I mean, they all inspire me. It's amazing. So good job on getting those people. They're the best.
Well, listen, you're one of those people. So thank you.
Oh gosh. Well, thank you so much. And I hope that I was able to, have someone learn something from this.
Oh my God. Are you kidding me? People should listen to this like 2-3 times. So thanks a lot.
Well, thank you so much.
This has been The Wedding Biz with Andy Kushner. You can find us at theweddingbiz.com and on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Wedding Biz Show.
I gave you my heart.
If you want to support the show, we'd be grateful if you shared it with colleagues, friends, and family. We'd also appreciate your review wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening.
It'll never shatter, no matter what we go through. I gave my heart to you. I gave you my heart on a silver platter, 'cause you make my dreams come true. It won't crack, baby, it'll never shatter, no matter what we go through. I gave you my heart on a silver platter.